I walked into the office Monday morning, expecting another normal day. Instead, I found my entire team huddled around Jessica's computer, laughing at something on her screen. My stomach dropped when I saw what they were looking at. Photos. Dozens of them. Everyone from our department at some fancy steakhouse, raising wine glasses and posing with huge smiles. The kind of dinner I'd been talking about for weeks. The one we were supposed to have with the Meridian Industries prospect. The $3 million client I'd been preparing presentations for since last month. "Oh, hey, Tanya," Jessica chirped, quickly minimizing the window. "How was your weekend?" My throat felt dry. "Fine. Looks like you guys had fun at wherever that was." The room went quiet. Tom shifted in his chair. Mary suddenly became very interested in her keyboard. Only Trent, our team lead, met my eyes. He had that smug look he always wore when he thought he'd gotten away with something. "Just a little team building," he said casually. "Nothing major. Nothing major. Right?" I forced a smile and walked to my desk, my heart pounding. This wasn't an accident. This was calculated. They'd deliberately left me out of the most important client meeting we'd had all year. I sat at my desk, staring at my computer screen, trying to process what had just happened. 2 weeks ago, I'd stayed until midnight helping Trent fix his completely botched presentation for another client. The slides were a mess, the data was wrong, and the whole thing made our company look unprofessional. I'd rewritten the entire thing from scratch, found the correct statistics, and even created new graphics. The next morning, Trent presented it flawlessly. The client loved it. Did I get any credit? Of course not. Trent took a bow and promised management he'd keep up the excellent work. But he'd looked me in the eye afterward and said, "Don't worry, Tanya. When the big client talks happen, you'll be right there with me. I promise." I'd believed him. I actually believed him. I pulled up my calendar and scrolled back through the past few weeks. Every meeting I'd attended about Meridian Industries, every strategy session where I'd contributed ideas, every late night I'd spent perfecting our approach. My hands trembled slightly as I opened my email. Maybe there was some explanation. Maybe I'd missed the invitation somehow. But deep down, I already knew the truth. I spent the next hour going through every email thread related to Meridian Industries. My name was on all the early planning messages. I'd written half the strategy memos. I'd even created the client profile that everyone kept referencing. But when I got to last week's emails, something strange happened. My name just disappeared. The thread about dinner logistics, not included. The follow-up about restaurant reservations, not copied. The final confirmation email about presenting our pitch, I wasn't even mentioned. It was like someone had surgically removed me from the conversation. Then I saw something that made my blood run cold. In Tom's sent folder, which he'd accidentally shared with the whole team months ago and never fixed, there was an email dated 3 days ago. Per Trent's request, removing Tanya from client dinner distribution list. She'll be briefed separately. Separately? Right. I checked my deleted items folder thinking maybe I'd missed something. Nothing. I checked my spam folder. Still nothing. That's when I remembered something my IT friend Jake had taught me. Deleted emails don't really disappear immediately. They live in the system cache for a while. I opened the desktop recovery tool and started searching. What I found in the cache made me physically sick. There was an entire email chain I'd never seen. Trent had been coordinating with the team for over a week about excluding me from the client dinner. Not just excluding me, actively planning around my absence. "Make sure Tanya doesn't find out until after," one message read. "We need to present a unified front without her. Complications." Complications. That's what I was to them. Another email from Trent. "Tanya's done good prep work, but this level of client needs more senior representation. We'll brief her on outcomes." More senior representation. I had 3 years more experience than half the people who went to that dinner. I sat back in my chair staring at the screen. I could feel something shifting inside me. Not anger exactly. Something colder, more focused. I opened a new document and started typing. Every email, time-stamped. Every meeting I'd attended that they'd now erased from their narrative. Every contribution I'd made that they were pretending never happened. I wasn't planning revenge. I was planning truth. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. This isn't the first time he's done this. Attached was a folder labeled Rachel Talk.mp3. I plugged in my headphones and opened the audio file. It was a recording of Rachel, one of the quieter members of our team, talking to someone from HR. He keeps taking credit for my work. Rachel's voice was shaky, almost whispering. Last month's Zinder project, that was my research, my analysis. But somehow his name ended up as lead on the final report. The HR person, I recognized Beth's voice, was making sympathetic noises. That's concerning, Rachel. We'll definitely look into this pattern. And Tanya, Rachel continued. He does it to her too. Worse, actually. He'll use her ideas in meetings and pretend they're his. Or he'll ask her to fix his mistakes and then not acknowledge her help. We'll open an investigation, Beth promised. This kind of behavior isn't tolerated here. The recording was dated 6 months ago. 6 months, and nothing had happened. Trent was still our team lead, still taking credit, still pushing people aside when it benefited him. I saved the file to a secure folder and was about to close my laptop when a new email popped up. The sender made my heart skip. Alicia Vaughn, CEO of Meridian Industries. Hi, Tanya. I noticed you weren't at last night's dinner. Could we chat privately? I have some questions about the proposal. I stared at Alicia's email for a full minute before responding. My hands were shaking slightly as I typed back, suggesting a call that afternoon. When my phone rang at 2 p.m., I took a deep breath and answered as professionally as possible. Tanya, thank you for making time. Alicia's voice was warm but businesslike. I have to ask. Last night's presentation felt incomplete. There were several strategic elements missing that I expected to see based on our earlier conversations. Earlier conversations? I'd never spoken to Alicia directly. I'm sorry, but I think there might be some confusion. I wasn't part of last night's dinner. There was a pause. That's surprising. Your name was on most of the preparatory materials I reviewed. I specifically asked to meet the person who developed the market analysis framework. My heart started beating faster. That would be me. I created that framework 3 weeks ago. Interesting. Mr. Henderson said he'd developed it himself. Trent? Of course. I kept my voice steady. I'd be happy to walk you through the framework and answer any questions you have about our approach. For the next 30 minutes, we talked through the strategy. I explained my thinking, clarified the missing elements from last night's presentation, and suggested improvements. I never once threw Trent or the team under the bus. I just focused on the work. This is exactly what we needed to hear, Alicia said finally. Tanya, I want you leading our proposal review. No one else. The next morning, Trent called a team meeting. He strutted into the conference room like he owned the place, a huge grin plastered across his face. Great news, everyone. Based on last night's dinner, Meridian Industries is moving forward with us. I practically secured their verbal commitment. The team broke into applause. Jessica actually whooped. Tom raised his coffee mug in a mock toast. It was the perfect strategy, Trent continued, clicking through slides that I recognized as modified versions of my original presentation. The client loved our unified approach. Mary leaned over to Jessica. Remember when Alicia asked about the seafood allergy accommodations? Trent handled that so smoothly. And the way he explained the market analysis framework, Jessica whispered back, brilliant. I sat quietly in my chair, watching Trent bask in the praise for work I'd done, relationships I'd built, and strategies I'd developed. He caught my eye once and gave me a little nod, like he was graciously including me in his success. My phone buzzed silently under the table. A message from Alicia. Looking forward to our follow-up call this afternoon. I smiled and slipped my phone back into my pocket. Let Trent have his moment. He had no idea what was coming. Any questions? Trent asked the room. I shook my head. None at all. That afternoon, I tried to access the archived email system to gather more evidence. Instead of my usual dashboard, I got an error message. Access restricted. Contact IT administration. I walked over to Jake's desk in the IT department. He looked up from his computer with a concerned expression. Hey, Tanya, I was going to call you. Your email access got flagged for a routine audit this morning. Routine audit? Jake lowered his voice. Look, between you and me, it wasn't routine. Someone specifically requested your access logs. They wanted to see what historical files you'd been accessing. My stomach dropped. Trent suspected something. How long will I be locked out? Officially? Could be weeks. Unofficially. Jake glanced around and leaned closer. I might be able to give you 5 minutes of access right now if you need to grab something important. I thought about the evidence I'd already collected. The deleted emails, the cache files, Rachel's recording. I had enough to prove my case, but there was one more thing I needed. I just need to send myself one backup file, I said. Jake nodded and temporarily restored my access. I quickly composed an email to my personal account with all the evidence attached, marked the subject line insurance, and hit send. Then I immediately deleted it from my sent folder and cleared my trash. Done, I told Jake. Thanks. Some insurance policies, I thought, you hope you never need to use. 2 days later, Trent scheduled another client presentation call. Once again, I wasn't invited. I found out about it only because I overheard Tom talking to Mary about preparing slides. I watched from my desk as the team gathered in the conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see Trent gesturing enthusiastically while the others nodded along. The client video screen showed Alicia and her team looking politely confused. The call lasted barely 20 minutes. When it ended, I could see Trent's face had gone red. The team filed out of the conference room in uncomfortable silence. That didn't go well, I heard Jessica whisper to Tom. Did you see Alicia's face when Trent couldn't answer her questions about the implementation timeline? Tom whispered back. And when he couldn't explain the cost breakdown methodology? Embarrassing. Through my peripheral vision, I watched Trent stomp back to his office and slam the door. 5 minutes later, my computer pinged with a new email. From Alicia. Hi, Tanya. That was disappointing. I think there's been some miscommunication about who's actually leading this project. Would you be open to presenting a version solo? I'd like to hear your perspective on the implementation strategy. I looked around the office. Everyone was staring at their computers, trying to pretend they hadn't just witnessed a disaster. Trent's office door was still closed. I typed back, I'd be honored to present for you. When works best. I spent the entire weekend rebuilding the presentation from scratch. Not Trent's version, with my ideas mixed in. Not the watered-down version they'd presented at the dinner I wasn't invited to. My version. I included the full market analysis framework with clear attribution to my research. I added implementation timelines that actually made sense. I created cost breakdowns that were detailed and realistic, not the vague estimates Trent had been throwing around. Most importantly, I built in solutions to problems that I knew Meridian Industries was facing. Problems that had come up in my research, but that Trent had never bothered to understand. Monday morning, I presented to Alicia and her executive team via video call from a small conference room. No Trent. No team members looking over my shoulder. Just me and the work I'd been passionate about for months. This is exactly what we needed, Alicia said halfway through my presentation. You've clearly thought through challenges that no one else has addressed. When I finished, there was a long pause. Tanya, I'm going to be direct with you. This is significantly better than anything we've seen from your company so far. You understand our business in a way that your colleagues don't seem to. I kept my voice steady. I've spent a lot of time researching your industry and your specific challenges. It shows. We're moving forward with this proposal. We want you as our primary point of contact. Word spread through the office like wildfire. I was barely back at my desk when Trent stormed over, his face purple with rage. What the hell do you think you're doing? He hissed, trying to keep his voice down, but failing. The entire office had gone quiet. I could feel everyone watching us. I'm not sure what you mean, I said calmly. You went behind my back. You stole my client. They reached out to me directly, Trent. I responded professionally. Bullshit. You manipulated them somehow. You sabotaged our presentation. I stood up slowly, meeting his eyes. I did my job, just like I've been doing for 3 years. Trent's face was getting redder. We'll see about that. This is completely unacceptable. You violated protocol. He spun around and marched toward HR. I watched him go, my heart pounding, but my expression calm. Jessica leaned over from her desk. Tanya, what's he talking about? What client? Before I could answer, my email pinged. A meeting request from Beth in HR for first thing tomorrow morning. Subject line, urgent, discussion required. I had a feeling this was just the beginning. The HR meeting was exactly what I expected. Beth sat across from me with a stack of papers and a concerned expression. Trent was there too, sitting with his arms crossed and a smug look on his face. "Tanya, we've received some serious allegations," Beth began. "Trent says you engaged in unauthorized communication with a client and went around proper channels." I reached into my folder and pulled out printed copies of every email, every deleted message I'd recovered, and every piece of evidence I'd collected. "Here's my complete email record with Meridian Industries," I said, sliding the papers across the table. "You'll see that the client contacted me directly after being disappointed with the team's presentation." Trent leaned forward. "That's not the point. You should have redirected them back to me as team lead." I pulled out another document. "Here's the original strategy memo I wrote 6 weeks ago. You'll notice my name as the primary author." Beth started flipping through the pages, her eyebrows rising. "And here," I continued, "are the deleted emails showing how I was deliberately excluded from client communications." Trent's smugness started to fade. "Those are taken out of context." "And finally," I said, placing the last document on the table, "here's the recovered email chain where you instructed the team to remove me from the client dinner distribution list." The room went completely silent. Beth was staring at the papers. Trent had gone pale. "I'll need some time to review all of this," Beth said quietly. 3 hours later, Beth called me back to her office. This time, Trent wasn't there. "Tanya, I owe you an apology," she said before I even sat down. "I've reviewed all your documentation and I've also pulled some additional records." She opened a file on her desk. "It appears this isn't the first time we've had concerns about Trent's management style. We have 3 separate complaints from former female employees that were not properly investigated." My heart started beating faster. "What kind of complaints?" "Credit theft, exclusion from important meetings, manipulation of project attribution." Beth looked genuinely upset. "Your case has prompted us to reopen those investigations." She leaned forward. "I also received a call this morning from Alicia Vaughn at Meridian Industries. She contacted our CEO directly." "About what?" "She threatened to pull the entire contract if you face any disciplinary action. She specifically said you were the only person at our company who seemed to understand their business." I tried to keep my expression neutral, but inside I was amazed. Alicia had gone to bat for me without me even knowing it. "What happens now?" I asked. Now we figure out how to make this right, starting with a full investigation into Trent's conduct." Beth paused. "Tanya, I want you to know, you did everything correctly here. You documented everything, you stayed professional, and you protected both yourself and the company." Walking back to my desk felt surreal. The office buzzed with whispered conversations that stopped when I passed. Rachel avoided eye contact. Tom suddenly became very busy with his computer. Even Jessica, who usually chatted with everyone, kept her head down. I was an island now, respected by leadership, but clearly seen as a threat by my former teammates. It should have bothered me more than it did. But sitting at my desk, looking at my email inbox full of congratulatory messages from other departments, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I wasn't fighting for scraps anymore. I wasn't hoping someone would notice my contributions. I wasn't waiting for permission to do good work. My computer pinged with a new email from our division VP. "Tanya, could you please join me for lunch today? I'd like to discuss some opportunities." 2 hours later, I sat across from Victoria Elias in the executive dining room, listening to an offer that made my head spin. Lead consultant position. Client-facing role. Your own budget for team building. And, she paused dramatically, double your current salary. I set down my fork. "What's the catch?" Victoria smiled. "No catch, just results. You've proven you can handle high-value clients. We want you doing more of it." Different division, different floor, different team, fresh start. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Victoria's offer. It was everything I thought I wanted. More money, more responsibility, more respect. But something nagged at me. The timing felt convenient, almost too convenient. The next morning, I called Victoria and asked for a meeting. "I'm honored by the offer," I said, "but I have one condition." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Oh, I want full transparency about what happened with Trent, not just the investigation results. I want to know what actions will be taken, and I want input on how this division prevents similar situations in the future. That's unusual, Victoria said slowly. So was deliberately excluding me from client meetings and stealing my work, I replied. If I'm going to be a lead consultant, I need to know this company actually values integrity. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, then she smiled. You know what? Fair enough. Yes, we'll provide full transparency, and yes, we want your input on policy changes. She extended her hand. Do we have a deal? I shook it. We have a deal. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. When I returned to my floor the next day, the atmosphere had completely changed. There were closed-door meetings happening all morning. People were being called into HR one by one. Around lunchtime, I saw Tom emerge from Beth's office, looking shaken. An hour later, it was Jessica's turn. Then Mary's. I was updating my project files when Rachel appeared at my desk. She looked nervous, glancing around to make sure no one was watching. Tanya, she whispered, can we talk? Privately? We found an empty conference room. Rachel closed the door and took a deep breath. I recorded everything, she said quietly. What do you mean? The team meetings, the conversations where Trent mocked you, the planning sessions where he deliberately excluded you. Her hands were shaking. I've been recording for months. I stared at her. Why? Because I was scared it would happen to me next, and because what he was doing to you wasn't right. She pulled out her phone. I have over 20 recordings. Do you want to hear them? I thought about it for a moment. Are you ready to share them with HR? Rachel nodded firmly. I'm ready to talk. Finally. That afternoon, Rachel and I walked into Beth's office together. The recordings were damning. Hours of evidence showing Trent's pattern of behavior. Him mocking me as team mom who does the grunt work. Him joking about how I was too nice to fight back. Him literally planning how to take credit for my contributions. But the worst one was from last month's team meeting. Trent's voice came through Rachel's phone speaker. Tanya's not going anywhere. She's safe. She's invisible. She does good work, but she doesn't have the spine to challenge me. Perfect employee, really. The laughter from my teammates that followed made my stomach turn. Beth stopped the recording. How many people were in that meeting? Everyone, Rachel said quietly. The whole team. And no one objected to these comments? Rachel shook her head. People laughed, or they just stayed quiet. I sat in silence, processing what I'd heard. It wasn't just Trent, it was the entire culture of our team. They'd all been complicit in making me invisible. There's more, Rachel said, scrolling through her phone. But I think you get the picture. Beth looked at me. Tanya, I'm so sorry, this is completely unacceptable. What happens now? I asked. Now we finish this investigation properly. The formal hearing took place 3 days later in the executive conference room. Me, Rachel, Beth, Victoria, and 2 other senior managers I didn't recognize. I presented my evidence methodically. Email chains, deleted messages, client communications, project timelines. Everything documented and time-stamped. I didn't cry. I didn't get emotional. I just laid out the facts. Rachel played select recordings that showed the pattern of behavior. Her voice was steady as she explained what she'd witnessed over the past year. When we finished, one of the senior managers asked, "Is there anything else?" Beth slid a document across the table. This morning, we discovered that Trent submitted Tanya's client strategy memo to the division VP last month, with his name as the sole author. She pointed to the signature line. We have the original version with Tanya's name, saved with metadata, and we have the version Trent submitted with his name substituted. The room went completely silent. That's plagiarism, Victoria said quietly. That's a fireable offense by itself. I looked at the document. It was my memo, word for word. The memo I'd stayed late to perfect. The memo that had impressed upper management and led to my involvement with Meridian Industries. He'd literally stolen my work and tried to pass it off as his own. I think we've seen enough, one of the senior managers said. Trent was suspended the next morning. Beth called it pending further investigation, but everyone knew what that meant. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. By afternoon, whispers were circulating around the office. Vicious rumors about how I'd seduced Alicia Vaughn to win the Meridian Industries contract. About how I'd manipulated the situation to get Trent in trouble. The rumors were ridiculous, but they were spreading. I heard fragments of conversations that stopped when I walked by. I saw the looks from people who'd never even worked with me. Someone had started a poison campaign, and I had a pretty good idea who. That evening, Alicia called me directly. Tanya, I heard some disturbing rumors today. Someone from your company called our procurement department with concerns about your professionalism. My heart sank. Alicia, I can explain. There's nothing to explain, she cut me off firmly. I know exactly what this is, and I won't tolerate it. The next morning, Victoria rushed into my office. Tanya, we need to set up an emergency video call. Alicia Vaughn wants to speak to our entire executive team today. The video call was brutal. Alicia appeared on the conference room screen looking absolutely furious. Our entire C-suite was present. I want to address some rumors that have apparently been circulating, Alicia began, her voice ice cold. Someone from your company suggested that Tanya Carter won our business through inappropriate means. The executives looked uncomfortable. Our CEO, Xander, cleared his throat. Miss Vaughn, we're investigating. You're investigating? Alicia's voice rose. Let me be absolutely clear. Tanya Carter won this business because she was the only person in your entire organization who treated us with competence and respect. She leaned forward toward the camera. She understood our industry. She answered our questions. She provided solutions to problems that your other representatives didn't even recognize existed. The room was dead silent. If you punish her, if you question her integrity, if you do anything other than promote her for excellent work, we will terminate our contract immediately. And I will personally ensure that every company in our network knows why. Xander was scrambling to respond. Of course, we value Tanya's contributions. Then prove it, Alicia snapped. Because from where I sit, it looks like you have a serious culture problem. She ended the call without another word. The conference room stayed silent for a full minute after her video window closed. Finally, Xander turned to me. Tanya, it appears we owe you an apology and a promotion. 2 hours later, Beth called to tell me that Trent had been terminated, effective immediately. Xander offered me Trent's old position the next day. Team lead, same department, significant raise. I looked at him across his mahogany desk and shook my head. I don't want his job, I said. Xander looked confused. But you'd be perfect for it. You know the clients, you understand the work. I want something better, I interrupted. Something cleaner. I pulled out a proposal I'd spent the weekend preparing. I want to create a client innovation division. Small team, handpicked by me, focused on developing long-term strategic relationships with high-value clients. Xander flipped through my proposal. This is ambitious. Meridian Industries is already asking about expanding our contract. Alicia has 2 other companies she wants to refer to us, but only if they work with me directly. That got his attention. What would you need? Autonomy, budget for the right team members, and a guarantee that people are promoted based on merit, not politics. Xander was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. The board meeting is next week. I'll present your proposal. 3 days later, Victoria called me into her office with a huge grin. Congratulations, Tanya. Your client innovation division has been approved. You start Monday. Building my new team was the most satisfying part of the entire experience. I interviewed candidates from across the company, looking for people who'd been overlooked or undervalued. Rachel applied, of course. She sat across from me in the interview room, hopeful and nervous. Rachel, you did the right thing by speaking up, I told her, but I'm not sure you're ready for this team yet. Her face fell. Not because you lack talent, I continued quickly, but because you need time to rebuild your confidence. You've been conditioned to stay quiet for too long. She nodded slowly, understanding. I want you to take the lead on the Xander account. Prove to yourself that you can handle responsibility. Then we'll talk again in 6 months. As she was leaving, Rachel turned back. Tanya? Yeah? Thank you for everything. You taught me how to speak. She hugged me quickly and left. I hired 3 people that day. Alex from the research department, who'd been passed over for promotion twice. Samira from client services, who'd been stuck handling difficult accounts no one else wanted. And David, a recent graduate with brilliant ideas that his previous manager had ignored. None of them had ever been to a fancy client dinner. All of them were hungry to prove themselves. Perfect. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new office, modest but earned, when my assistant brought me a calendar invitation. Team dinner, hosted by Tanya. I stared at the invite for a moment, remembering that morning when I'd walked into the office to find photos of the dinner I'd been excluded from. Full circle. The dinner was different from Trent's version. We went to a nice restaurant, but not to show off. We celebrated our wins, but we also talked about our challenges. Most importantly, everyone was there. Every person who'd contributed to our success was included. Alex raised his glass. To Tanya, for building a team where good work actually gets recognized. To getting to do our jobs without politics, Samira added. To no one stealing credit, David chimed in. I smiled and raised my own glass. To building something better. As we were finishing dessert, Victoria appeared at our table. Sorry to interrupt, she said, but I wanted to give you the news in person, Tanya. She pulled out her phone and showed me an email. Alicia Vaughn just sent this. Meridian Industries is referring 2 more Fortune 500 companies to us. They specifically requested your team. The table erupted in cheers. Congratulations, Victoria continued. You just became our rainmaker. That night, I was getting ready for bed when my personal email pinged. The sender made me pause. Trent Henderson. The subject line was simple. You could have warned me. I opened the email. It was just one line. You could have warned me this was coming. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me felt sorry for him. He'd lost his job, his reputation, his team's respect. But then I remembered the recordings of him mocking me, the stolen credit, the deliberate exclusion. I typed back just as simply, you could have invited me. I hit send, then immediately deleted both emails. Some conversations don't deserve to continue. The next morning, I found a handwritten note on my desk from Rachel. Started leading the Zinder account today. Thought you should know. I spoke up in 3 different meetings. Thanks for teaching me how. I smiled and filed the note away. Some conversations, on the other hand, were just beginning. Life had a funny way of coming full circle. But this time, I was the one deciding who got left out. Spoiler alert, everyone got invited. I stood in my corner office 6 months later, looking out at the city skyline. The morning sun reflected off the glass buildings, casting everything in golden light. My phone buzzed with a text from Alicia. Just signed the expansion contract. Looking forward to year 2 with your team. 3 million had become 8 million. 8 million would probably become 15 by next year. I thought about that Monday morning when I'd walked into the office to find pictures of the dinner I'd been excluded from. How small I'd felt. How invisible. Now I had my own division, my own team, my own clients who called me directly because they trusted my judgment. I didn't burn bridges to get here. I didn't destroy anyone's career out of spite. I just documented the truth and let it speak for itself. Trent's downfall wasn't my victory. It was his own making. Every email he deleted, every meeting he excluded me from, every piece of credit he stole just added another nail to his own coffin. I opened my laptop and started typing my weekly team update. No politics, no games, just honest communication about our goals and challenges. Outside my office, I could hear Alex and Samira collaborating on a client presentation. David was on a call, walking someone through our new framework with enthusiasm and expertise. This was what a real team looked like, what actual leadership felt like. I didn't take them down, I realized as I typed. They gave me everything I needed when they left me out.